What's up, everybody? Carolina Jackpot coming at you. Woo! College football season. A little bit less than 3 months away, y'all. It is coming, and it's coming fast. And I figured what better time than now to start off my pick and prediction videos for the 2019 season. Now, Saturday, I did upload the 5 teams that I think will win more games than people are bargaining for in 2019. I'm still doing a video, gathering some information and whatnot to do a video on the 5 teams that I think will lose more games than people are bargaining for in 2019 as well. That'll probably be done tomorrow or the next day. But I want to start my previews off because, time's wasting. There's quite a few teams to do, and not that many days until football season kicks off. I'm not going to be able to do all the college football teams in, the FCS level, or FBS level. Excuse me, I'm not doing any FCS teams this year. But I want to get as many done as I possibly can. And I have no particular order that I'm going in. So after this video is done with and you're done watching it, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know which team you want me to do next. I have no particular order that I plan on going in. I did a video the other week about my South Carolina Gamecocks 2019 season. That really wasn't an official pick and prediction video. That was just me talking about the schedule and how many winnable games they have and how many I think are losses and whatnot. And I think I settled on 7-5. And I doubt I'll really waver from that in the pick and prediction video that I do later on this summer. But that was not the official South Carolina Gamecock one. So whichever team you want to see me do next, let me know, guys. I'll take all suggestions, good, bad, or indifferent. Without further ado, let's move right along and start talking about the champs. 2018 season, Clemson Tigers finished up 15-0. 15-0. Some say the best team ever. They ran through their regular season, really didn't get seriously challenged, went to the playoffs and disposed of Notre Dame and then the Alabama Crimson Tide in a surprisingly easy fashion. That game was just a total mismatch, especially the entire second half. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming, yours truly included. I thought Clemson might win the game, but I thought it was going to be by less than a touchdown, not 28 points or whatever it was. So big props to them for that. This year, team's going to look a little bit different. It's going to look a little bit different. On offense, it's not going to look too much different at all. They're still returning about 7 or 8 starters. The biggest void that they have to fill on that offense is going to be their left tackle, Mitch Hyatt, 4-year starter. He started every game that he ever suited up at Clemson. Huge loss there as far as that goes. And at tight end, they got to replace Braden Galloway. Won't be playing the 2018 or 19 season. Had some performance-enhancing drug issues there, so he won't be eligible along with somebody else. I can't name escapes me, but at any rate, offense won't look a lot different. All the skill position players are coming back. Trevor Lawrence last year, 30 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. And Tigers have something that a lot of teams don't have. They have 2 legitimate Heisman Trophy candidates on their team. Their running back, Travis Etienne, last year, 1,658 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 yards every time he touched the ball. He's a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. I think he's more legit Heisman Trophy candidate right now than Lawrence is, just because of the simple fact that he won't be returning next year. If they're going to let him win it, it'll be this year, and it could certainly happen. The guy's got breakaway speed, really explosive player, and he does a heck of a job for him. Wide receivers, T. Higgins is back. We all saw what he could do the past couple of years. Justin Ross came on the scene last year, made some amazing catches in the national championship game, made some amazing catches all year long, quite frankly. And the defense is where you're going to see a lot of changes. I only got like 4 starters coming back on defense. Tanner Muse, Kayvon Wallace is back. Isaiah Simmons, who's on some people's All-America list, and A.J. Terrell back in the backfield back there. That whole I'm concerned about that line and that front 7 actually. Now, not to say that I'd be concerned about it, that it's not going to gel and be a really good defensive unit. It's just it may take a little time for them to get going. This is going to be a lot of new guys there, a lot of names you never heard of before, but names that you'll probably remember at the end of the season. One of those would be Xavier Thomas, number 3 on the end for Clemson. He's quite a character. Quite a character. I got to say that. I'm telling you, a lot of people are picking. He's actually in this one magazine I read sometimes as a second-team All-American candidate. We'll see. We'll see about that. I don't really know that he did enough last year to really garner that kind of respect, but if his football acumen is as big and huge as his ego and his Twitter handle, then he might be. He might be. Anyway, let's get into that 2019 schedule real quick. Clemson opens up on August 29th against Georgia Tech in Death Valley. That's going to be a night game. That will be the first game ever televised by the new ACC network. And actually, that's kind of strange because South Carolina kicked off the SEC network with first game over there. And we all know how that one turned out against Texas A&M a few years ago. If you don't, then I'm not going to tell you because I don't like talking about it. But anyway, Georgia Tech, bringing in Jeff Collins as coach. He's replacing Paul Johnson. Excuse me. They're going to have a tough time this year. They really are. All the players they have on their team are recruited to that option style of offense. The strength of their team may be the defense this year, actually. One thing people don't talk about, and it's not really a good thing, but in March, one of their defensive linemen passed away. Young man did, and that's one of those kind of things that's kind of a thing, a little bit of emotion can kind of carry a team a little bit. Now, it's not going to be able to carry you that far, okay? If you don't have the talent there, you don't have the talent. And I'm not saying that they're going to go out there and upset Clemson in the first game of the season. I'm not saying that at all. I expect Clemson to win this game. I expect them to win it by a wide margin. But I could see Georgia Tech coming out there, full of emotion, punching them in the mouth early, maybe taking the lead, maybe going up 7-0 or something like that. Clemson's not really going to have any film on them either because this is going to be a totally different Georgia Tech than they've ever seen before. The closest you could get to watching film, I guess, is to watch some film from last year on Temple. But I expect Clemson to roll in this game. I mean, I see them maybe winning this game something like 38-7, 45-7, something like that. Georgia Tech's just not going to be able to keep up. They're outmanned, undersized, and just any adjective that you can think of as far as being a mismatch, that one definitely fits the bill. Clemson's 1-0 after that one. Texas A&M comes to town the next week on the 7th. They're going to play a 3:30 game. I think that was going to be on ABC. A lot of people are saying, who's going to be Clemson's toughest test of the year? Texas A&M. Let's back up on that real quick, okay? Because last year, Clemson did win in College Station 28-26, okay? Now, game was too close to comfort. But, I mean, the Taters led that game like 28-6 at one point, okay? Taters let Texas A&M get back in that game, okay? Instead of, keeping their foot on the gas pedal, they let up on it and let Texas A&M get back in the game. They really, didn't have no business doing that. I think Texas A&M is going to be a little bit down this year from what they were last year. And a lot of people aren't expecting that. I got people in some polls putting Texas A&M at number 10. I'm like, why? I don't get that. They just lost the best running back in the Southeastern Conference from last year in Travion Williams. And a lot of Georgia fans are going to say it was DeAndre Swift. Alabama fans are going to say it was Damian Harris or his brother Najee Harris. No, I think that best running back in the league last year was the kid from Texas A&M. He's gone. They also lose I can't even begin to pronounce his name, the tight end. That guy was a huge part of their offense as well. Look for Texas A&M to either not improve or they may take a little bit of a step back from what they are. And what they are is, quite frankly, a team that's going to win you between 7 and 9 ball games every season, and that's about it. Clemson will win this game. Texas A&M may put a few points on the scoreboard. I can see this being like a a 52-21 type game, maybe a 52-17 type game. Maybe Clemson doesn't score that much. Maybe it's a 45-20 type game. At any rate, I think they're going to cover the spread of whatever it is, and I think they're going to win it fairly easily. Next week, they're on the road at Syracuse. This is another one that people are like, oh, well, Syracuse, they beat you 2 years ago, and, you had a tough time with them this past year. Yeah, they did. But the thing about Syracuse is, last year, I think, was their ceiling. Last year was their ceiling. I do not see them getting any better than that. Yes, they did win the bowl game against a Will Greer-less West Virginia team. But when they really got on that big stage against Notre Dame kind of late in the season, they got embarrassed. They really did. They didn't look good at all. I think Dino Babers is a good coach, but, given the amount of talent that he's able to pull in there at that school, I think he's really taken about as far up as he can. And right now, they've kind of entrenched themselves as second in the ACC Atlantic just by default. Really. They're a second-place team. They're not a solid second. You know what I'm saying? They're not a solid second. A few years ago, 2015, 16, before the wheels totally fell off, Florida State was a solid second to you guys. They were a solid second. They were a legit contender, and they was a solid second. Just like in 2013, 2014, when they were running shit, y'all were a solid second to them. You were a solid second to them. Syracuse is not, in my opinion, a solid second to you, okay? On any given Saturday, any of those teams in the ACC Atlantic, or the Coastal for that matter, could beat Syracuse. Case in point, last year they almost lost to UNC in overtime. They beat them at home, but they almost lost to them. That's what Syracuse is. They're just not that great of a football team. I think y'all are going to squash them in the Carrier Dome this year, quell the rumors, or not the rumors, quell the naysayers who think that there's some kind of mojo in the Carrier Dome that you guys can't perform there. Well, you take care of business there. Not going to be a good day for them on the artificial surface. ETN in there with all that speed and whatnot. The receivers y'all got, the frisbee catching dogs. I can see y'all beating Syracuse by like 3 touchdowns. Next week is a home game against Charlotte. Not even going to talk about that one. It's an easy win. Charlotte does have a good running back. They don't want a guy that rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. Unfortunately for them, it's not going to be enough. You guys will win that game. Name the score. Next week, you're on the road at North Carolina in Chapel Hill. It's been the first time Clemson has played in Chapel Hill in, God, I don't know how long. At least maybe 2009, 2010, something like that was the last time y'all played up there. Easy win. North Carolina's a bad football team. They have been for a couple years now. They got Mac Brown in this year. He's not going to change that immediately. He is recruiting better. I think he's going to pull in some talent, and I think he will build a foundation back at UNC for somebody else to take over in a few years, take over the keys to the bus and drive it in the right direction. But this year, it's going to be a rebuilding year for them. They're going to take a lot of lumps. They'll definitely take some lumps that day. You guys are cruising that one. I can see you winning that game 35, 40 points once again. We're starting to see a trend here. On the 12th of October, you're back at home against FSU. FSU, absolutely terrible last year. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the country. James Blackman will be taking over the reins again at quarterback this year. I think he was the quarterback 2 years ago when Francois got hurt in that first game against Alabama, and he did okay. I think they ended up having like a 7-6 record or something like that. Had a winning season, but they got Cam Akers in the backfield. Cam Akers is pretty good, but once again, that offensive line, I don't see where they've really upgraded it a lot. And, everybody talks about Florida State. They're the second most talented team on Clemson's schedule. Excuse me, what talent? What talent are you talking about? Cam Akers is the talent there. I don't see, a whole lot talent anywhere else. Last year, Clemson beat them 59-10 in Tallahassee. And I went back and watched that game later on that day because I had to work that day pretty late. But I mean, that game wasn't even as close as that score would indicate. And that's bad. That's the game where, the famous picture of the Florida State fan, like, sitting up there. He's, like, sitting, on a step, like, up against the brick wall. It's like reading a magazine or something during the game. Sad state of affairs down there. Willie Taggart probably better get it together pretty soon because they're not going to stand for much more of that down there. This year, they might be a little better. They got to be a little better, right? I think they may win 6 ball games. They're not winning that one. I see you guys winning that one by 28 to 35 points. I mean, I just do. They're not very good. Next week, you're on the road at Louisville. This is an interesting game. This is a team that I think could be a little bit better than what people are giving them credit for. Scott Satterfield's a good coach. He's a good coach. It's going to take him a while there to get the culture totally changed at Louisville, but I think he can do it. Puma Pass is a good quarterback. He has an NFL arm. If you've watched any of him playing last year, he's not a bad quarterback at all. Didn't have a whole lot going for him as far as blocking for him. But if they can get that worked out, if they can develop some kind of running game, and my God, I mean, do something with the defense. I mean, that was one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in my life. Last year, it really was. Gave up a ton of yards, ton of points. Y'all beat this team last year like 77-16. I firmly expect that margin to be cut in half this year. I think Louisville might be one of the surprising teams in the ACC Atlantic. Not that they're going to, make like a New Year's Six Bowl or anything like that, but I could see them winning 6 games and being much improved over what they were last year. And then next year, with a little bit of recruiting and, a little bit more work on that defense, I could see them, getting back to the 8-win level or somewhere like that. But that's down the road. This a 4-score win, I think, on the road at Louisville in this game. The next week, you're at home, Boston College. Another one that, Boston College is a team that I talked about the other day in my video about the teams that could win more games than what people are giving them credit for. They have good skill players with A.J. Brown at quarterback, or Anthony Brown, at quarterback. I keep messing these guys' names up. A.J. Brown. I did it again. A.J. Dillon at running back. Anthony Brown is the quarterback there. But, not a lot else around them. So they're going to have to really rely on some production there, heavy production from those guys. They're going to have to control the ball. I just don't see them being able to do that against y'all. Last year, what did you beat them, like 26-7 or something like that, 28-7? I can see, for some reason, I can see this game not going that way because they've lost a lot on defense. A lot of good players. They had like 3 or 4 players drafted off that defense last year. I can see them giving up a lot of points this time. I see you win this game like 41-10, maybe 41-17 if you're not totally able to shut down A.J. Dillon. Wofford at home the next week. That's another one, another gimme name to score. Wofford is a solid team in FCS. They really are. Probably we will be predicted to finish 1 or 2 in the Southern Conference this year, but obviously no match for Clemson. I mean, they don't match up talent-wise, size-wise, or depth-wise. It's just not happening. They'll run the triple option a little bit and try to keep it away from you, but in the end, you're just too much for them. The next week, you are on the road at NC State. It's a team that's given the Taters some problems in the past. You were this close in 2016 to losing to these guys. 2017, one of the best teams that they've had there in quite some time. You had to have about 3 touchdowns in the second half to come back and beat them. This year, this is not the same NC State team as it was in 2016 or 2017. Last year, I think they kind of disappointed a little bit. That last year was senior, Ryan Finley was a senior. They didn't have that big defensive front that they've had in the past, but they had a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, and it really just didn't all come to fruit. They finished like 7-5, I think. They went to the Gator Bowl, played Texas A&M. They absolutely got bamboozled. I mean, that was just a laugher. The game was fairly close at halftime. As soon as the second half, it was close at halftime. I went and I took a shower or something like that, and I came back and Texas A&M was up by like 4 scores. I'm not lying. I mean, it was that quick. So this is a game that I think you're going to win in Raleigh. I think you win comfortably in Raleigh for the first time in quite some time. I see this being like a 28-point margin here. Last ACC game of the year is the next week. You're at home against Wake Forest. Last year, you were on the road in Winston-Salem. I mean, I think a few people thought that Wake Forest might be able to score some points on you because they'd scored like some points on Rice and Tulane. A couple of weeks prior to that, you beat them like 63-3, and that was terrible. That was just a terrible beatdown. ETN had a field day on that afternoon. Wake Forest is a team that they're going to give you their best shot. They really are, but they're another team that just does not have they don't have the depth, they don't have the talent at skill positions to compete with a Clemson or to compete, consistently with a team like a Miami. I can't really say anybody here out of the Atlantic because there's really not anybody in there any good. Like I said, they could rise up and beat anybody except for Clemson in that side of the ACC. But Wake Forest, they are who they are, and who they are is just a mediocre program. They did actually get a little bit of notoriety under Dave Clawson. Not Dave Clawson. I keep making mistakes. I need some sleep or something. Jim Grove is the one that was there for like 15 years that actually took them to an Orange Bowl. He won an ACC championship there. Did some really good things at Wake Forest. But before he was there, I mean, when you had Jim Caldwell was there, Al Groh was the coach there. It was at one point in time, man, Wake Forest went like 2 years in a row and didn't win a game in the conference. I mean, they were just terrible. I mean, it was just you could just pencil that in as a gimme every week. Now, Wake Forest is a formidable team that could give you a tough fight on any given Saturday, but they're probably not going to beat you. That's just how I look at that one. You guys got, that'll be your senior day or whatever, your military day thing there. I look for you to cruise in that game too. Look, that's a 48-17 type win or something like that. So that gives you an 11-0 record, right? So the next week, we're on the road in Columbia, taking on my Gamecocks. And, that's hard to say. It's hard to say on this one right at this particular point in time how that one's gonna go. Last year, I had a feeling, and I called it, that game would turn into a shootout. And Gamecocks did their best to make that game a shootout. However, we just had so many injuries on defense that wasn't that great to begin with. And, we ended up just, getting too far behind there at the beginning of the second half to be able to catch back up. This year, things are going to be different. South Carolina knows that they can score on Brent Venables' defense because they did it last year. Now, you're going to sit here and tell me, well, you don't have Debo Samuel back no more. You're not. Yeah, that's fine, okay? We got some talent that we brought in. Ortre Smith is back. Shy Smith's back. Brian Edwards is back. I think Brian's going to be focused this year, start catching the balls he needs to catch. Got Josh Vann back there. Keel Pollard's back. You know what Keel did to you last year. This is going to be the toughest test for you this season. Yeah, this will be the toughest test. We've already proven we can score on the Brent Venables defense. This year's Brent Venables defense is going to be, and I think it'll end up being a good defense, especially by the end of the year, but I think it's a defense that's going to – there's no way that it can be as good as the defense you had last year. I mean, it's just not. I mean, you don't have 4 first-round draft picks on the defensive line this year. You just don't. Last year you had three on the line last year. It's just not happening. You're going to give up some points, and I think that we're going to have our defensive problems fixed by this point in time. I hope we do. We've got some quality depth now. We didn't lose a lot on defense as far as graduation goes, as far as, just whatever kind of attrition you got. Yeah, we had some players leave the program and enter the transfer portal, and they were bit players or special teams guys. I mean, one guy was like a sixth-team scout quarterback or something, okay? And, one of my Clemson friends posted on Facebook the link to the article, and he's like, dumpster fire, falling apart in Columbia. Yeah, we're falling apart. A guy who'll never see the field is not going to be with us any longer. God, what are we going to do? At any rate, this game will be your toughest game of the season. If South Carolina can hang around long enough, this will be a game that will go down to the fourth quarter. I'm putting this one in toss-up category. I really am. I'm putting this one in the toss-up category, and that would leave your final record looking something like this. As you see, there we go. We have wins all the way down, and this one's a toss-up. Had to write that one in. I don't know what I did. Did my settings wrong, and it ended up on a different sheet of paper. So there we go. So that leaves you guys with a record of either 12-0 or 11-1. If we go into this game, we don't play well, we're not winning. I mean, it's just as simple as that. We'll get beat badly. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that South Carolina knows they can compete with Clemson. And that's my take on it. You're either finishing 12-0 or 11-1. And quite frankly, you could lose a game somewhere else on the schedule, but I just don't see it. I mean, you lost in 2016 to Pittsburgh on that one particular Saturday late in the year. But I don't, and when we looked at the schedule that year, I looked at that. I knew Pittsburgh had a decent team coming back. I didn't think they were probably going to beat you, but they had a decent team coming back. I don't see anybody on this schedule of that level. I mean, that could beat you at home or what. In your conference, I really just don't. I don't see it. A lot of people give you guys a grief about the schedule you play and whatnot, but I mean, honestly, you're playing South Carolina out of conference, which you play every year, and you do have Texas A&M on the schedule, and that is I do think they're overrated, but they're an upper level SEC team. They're we've got probably three tiers of teams in the SEC, and I would say they're somewhere near the top of that second tier. Okay, so that's not a bad non-conference opponent. You got Charlotte, which is a gimme game, and Wofford, which is an FCS team. Everybody schedules teams like that. And then your conference schedule, this is nothing that you can do anything about. It is not your fault that Georgia Tech's retooling and they got a new coach this year and they've changed their offensive philosophy. That's not your fault. It is not your fault that North Carolina is in, much the same boat, that they couldn't play defense to save their soul for the past few years, and now they're, stuck behind the eight ball and rebuilding. It's not your fault that Florida State fell apart. Not your fault Louisville fell apart. It's not your fault that Boston College and Wake Forest are what they are and are just mediocre programs. And it's not your fault that NC State's rebuilding either. So is your schedule weak? Yeah, it's weak, but, it's nothing you've done. You guys have played a tough schedule 2015, 16, and 17. Those schedules were rated some of the toughest in the country. So, and it all just goes back to what your opponents were doing, And right now, what your conference opponents are doing is, they're sucking. Let's just call it what it is. Call a spade. They're just not that good. So that's my prediction. Clemson will either go 11-1 or 12-0 this year. They'll make it to the ACC championship game. More on that down the road later on this summer. We'll discuss who we think might make it to the ACC championship game, and then on the college football playoffs. If you finish this thing up with an 11-0 record and you do lose to South Carolina, if you make it to the ACC championship game, which you would in that case, and win it, you're still going to the college football playoff. So there's that. All right, guys, that's my take on it, my unbiased take. Carolina Jackpot. I'm out of here. If you enjoyed the content, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. Click the little bell so you'll get the notification and you'll know when Carolina Jackpot has posted a new college football video. And I'll see y'all later. Appreciate it. Peace. And I'm out here. Go Gamecocks. Woo!